Let's see, 21st?
Yes.
Hi, today's October 21st, 2024, and I am honored to have the second of our two debates between Amy Sangiolo and Vlad Yanovsky. We had the first one in September, but I'm actually only saying that partially tongue-in-cheek. Amy said at the time that she would come back for a second one, but she's unavailable till after the election. So we don't have the Clint Eastwood chair, but we do have Vlad Yanovsky with us, and he is kind enough to show up for the second time. I haven't bored him silly yet, and we're going to try to discover some of the issues that are facing voters in this upcoming state election. Everyone knows about the federal. There's a few people running. There's a Libertarian, Green Party, and then two other people you might have heard about. Anyway, but we are mostly concerned today with the 11th Middlesex. Is that one of our genders we have to worry about?
Yes.
I've lost track, but we're going to be on the 11th Middlesex.
That's right.
And I think in the range of the spectrum, that puts us where? Central Newton, Newton North?
Newton North, from
Com
towards,
Ave up. So, Mr. Yanovsky, tell us a little bit about what is motivating you to run. What type of things differentiate you from your opponent? What intrigues and interests voters who are either on your team or not, from your experience talking with people?
Thank you for asking this question. I appreciate that. It's what motivates me. The fear of the past. The past being something that has happened throughout the known universe here on our planet, whether it was in the place called the Soviet Union or China or Cambodia or Vietnam, all these places, or even Cuba, just 90 miles away from Florida. So all those places experimented with socialism/communism, and it led to just extraordinarily horrible results with an unknown number of people who died and an unknown number of people who suffered in strife and starvation and agonizing horrors that people in America have never experienced, which of course something that we're playing footsie with socialism here for quite some time now. And I'm afraid people behind good ideas will lead us down that primrose path to starvation, deprivation, war, and chaos. So that's what motivated me to actually get into the political fray.
Yeah, just the little things.
Just the little things.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a slight detour because I saw this the other day. There was a classroom where they asked the kids if they loved socialism. They all did. And so they said, okay, we're going to do socialism in the class. And they had grades based on performance, and they started to generalize and redistribute the grades. So if you were the 90 student, you had to shave off 20 points to give to the 50 student, so everyone would wind up with a 70, thereabouts. So on the first pass, everyone got like whatever it was, a C or something like that, C minus. And people, the people who did nothing were pretty happy about that. The people who did something basically learned not to do something on the next round because, why am I studying if you're not going to give me the grade? If I'm not going to get the recognition, I'm not going to get ahead, why should I do this? There's an old Soviet joke, probably you know better than I, but they pretend to pay us, we pretend to work. And so socialism is a wonderful, wonderful concept. It just doesn't happen to work on people.
Well, it works great. It depends what results you wish to achieve. But yes, you're 100% correct. If they think they're paying us, let them think we're working. There are so many jokes along these lines. It's just incredible. But that's what it boils down to. Yes, the students realized quite early on what socialism is all about.
Well, yeah, except the ones that seem to be a little bit buffered are kept from that. But anyway, this is probably something that motivates you. Having had experience in the Soviet, I spent a few weeks, 3-4 weeks behind the Iron Curtain back in 1987, electively. So I have some mild experience on the topic. But what are the things? I mean, I think there's probably a gap between your knowledge and those of the local voters. What are the things that people are concerned about in Newton that have people have addressed with you, and what are your solutions or answers, or what is like two things? What's kind of the common question of people on your side, you think, or people against you, and what are the provocative, things that come up?
Everything that socialism does is veiled in goodness. We're trying to accomplish these wonderful things, like, for example, housing for all. Well, what does that mean? Someone eventually has to pay for all of that. Where does the money come from? So if it's housing for all, whether housing is a universal right, it sounds great that everyone deserves a nice home to live in. The problem begins when you try to figure out where the money is coming from and who's going to be, if someone's entitled to something, that means somebody has to provide that something to somebody else. It's like healthcare is a universal right. It sounds wonderful, but if it's a right to someone, that means that a physician has to provide that health care to that person free of charge because it is a right. See where it begins not to work. So the most important thing that people see, that there needs to be that healthy understanding that nothing in this world is free and everything needs to be paid for. And people believe that, well, if we pay something, a little bit of something from everyone, then it's going to be wonderful for everybody else. Well, you run out of other people's money relatively quickly because there's so many ideas du jour that, that are wonderful and everything else. And folks just don't see it. We suffer from this condition in Newton in particular called affluenza, where just because we feel that we're affluent, we have to feel guilty at the same time. Well, first of all, not everyone in Newton is affluent. Some people just been living here for a long time, and they can afford their home the way it was passed down to them through generations. Other people don't necessarily have to part with their money. I mean, who's to say that $5 that you want to take away from another person wouldn't be used to buy Flintstones vitamins for their kids? It's all these wonderful ideas, but who are we to tell others what to do with their money? On the other hand, America has been such a charitable country. America is the basically homeland of charity. We give to everyone. We have people going outside the United States to provide free services.
Right.
Doctors Without Borders, this, that, and the other thing.
It's a funny thing you mentioned. These are, you mentioned affluenza,
Yeah.
and there are, a set of luxury problems that people have, in a sense, perversely. They don't really know the good fortune they've had, and they haven't had the experience of not having had it so much. The old expression is, born on third base and thinking you hit a triple. That's an American sport.
Right. No, I love baseball.
I'm just teasing.
No.
But along the way we had a little glitch there. I apologize.
That's all right.
I'm assuming we're still on. But along the way, people don't realize that a lot of things that they want to attack and tackle in terms of their great ideas can only happen in a place where you actually have enterprise,
That's right.
where you have creation. Now, these things don't happen in a vacuum. They tried it during COVID to sprinkle money dust and say, everyone stay at home, don't work. All the money dust is coming, the money fairies are going to bring special money, put in your account. We're going to have this PIP and all these other things. I forget the other terms for these things, where they're going to have payments coming to you and so forth. And what happens is that deflated the money supply. It exaggerated the money supply, and then that amount of money is worthless. Like if you're playing Monopoly and everyone has, I don't know, $500 to $1,000 to start with, $1,500, whatever the number is, and then you pour in tens of thousands, every property is going to have a different valuation because everyone has the money that is now worth, half of what it was before. So, but to get to the kind of my mini Soviet experience back in the 80s, I passed through the the Iron Curtain. This was the workers' paradise, and this is where kind of the ecological concepts and Earth Day and all these things, the concepts were invented behind the Iron Curtain. But when you actually get there, there was the worst pollution. People didn't,
hideous, yes.
People didn't have the extra money to be able to take their time off and have their minds float around for NGO, kind of charitable concepts when they didn't have enough to get fed. And they were worried about the state watching them, or thinking, wrong think and all that kind of stuff. So this concept where, you are, able to have the luxuries to do these wonderful charitable things only happen when you have the actual excess. You can't be a blood donor if you're anemic.
That's right. And of course, people don't understand that if they take the money from wealthy, first of all, it's almost impossible to do. The wealthy know what to do with their money. They're going to keep their capital one way or the other. But if you take away their money and their incentive to do anything, you see, the poor people don't necessarily, but they don't. They can't invest, so they can't do any of these projects, grandiose projects that they're looking for. It takes a wealthy person to infuse that money into the system and allow people on a lower economic spectrum to actually be able to achieve a higher status. So everything comes down from above. It's used to be called trickle-down economics, but it's true. It's the only economics that works, and that's just how it is.
It's a funny thing. It's Adam Smith's virtuous circle.
Yes.
I followed sports my whole life, and people are always excited when one team trades with another. But the concept of wealth basically is based on trade and free trade. And the thing is, if you have 30, can openers, and I've got a bunch of cans and no can openers, I can give you a can and you can be a can opener, and now we can both do something with it. Whereas previously you might have been very wealthy in can openers, I'm very wealthy in cans, but we can't really do anything productively on our own. This is kind of, the concept of the pencil that gets created. Nobody could ever make one. It would take you 1,000 years to make a pencil.
That's right.
But this cooperative aspect. So, getting to back to our state rep race, what are the concepts that say your upbringing, your thoughts from what I gather, kind of the best capitalists are those, who were brought up elsewhere. What are the ideas that differentiate you from Amy Ma Sangiolo in this race? And what are people, if they pay attention to the 11th Middlesex, what should they be voting for? How should they think about this? And how would it affect things in the state, capital and politics?
Well, Amy has a lot of ideas that sound very good. Universal housing, possibly even universal income, though we haven't discussed this particular aspect, but this baseline foundational wealth that people come into that comes from basically fleecing everybody else in the city, because she proposes, for example, to come up with the money for deeply affordable housing through transfer taxes, which rolls into about $50,000 per house being sold in Newton. So on top of everything else that we pay when we sell our homes, this would be an additional $50,000 that we would have to spend to fund these grandiose, lovely sounding ideas. She wants us to get off fossil fuels. Why Newton of all places? I don't know. We are considered to be one of the cleanest cities in the United States, and the United States doesn't really contribute much, even using their own values of greenhouse gases. Even though when people think about what those things actually are, it's the oceans that are producing vast majority of greenhouse gases, water vapors, and so on and so forth. What are we going to do about it? It's all about the human involvement in this particular aspect. So we're getting off fossil fuels here. We're going to tax ourselves personally to death. We're not going to use any oil products, like, for example, paving our roads. If you drive down our roads in Newton, it's one pothole on top of the other, with record monies coming into the city treasury and so on and so forth. We can't fix our streets. Potholes on top of potholes. And what are you going to fill that if you don't use oil? Asphalt is made out of oil refinement, natural gas, and all those wonderful things. We have the cleanest technology for energy, and this is cheap energy. You may have noticed, by the way, that the prices on gasoline went down a little bit. I don't know if anybody out there noticed.
I think they released a strategic reserve.
Well, what really happened, what they did is that quietly they went back to the policies of Donald Trump, and they allowed more oil companies to start drilling. So we're now above those 12 million barrels a day, 13, 14, and that's what makes our gasoline a little bit more humane, the costs at the pump. And without that, no Democrat would be running today.
Yeah, it's a little lipstick on the pig kind of thing.
That's right.
Before the election, things, they paint the town, like before the Olympics.
Yes.
Whatever place it happens to be, they make the town look great. Or if Xi Jinping comes to visit San Francisco, it all cleans up all of a sudden. So is there a specific question that say, you find most difficult to answer from voters who approach you?
I don't really have any difficulty answering any questions that voters want to ask me. The only problem is that a lot of people who come to ask me questions are looking to not to ask a question to get an answer. They're looking to get a question to entrap me somewhere. Aha! It's one of those gotcha questions. What are you going to do about abortion? I said, well, I don't really want to do anything about abortion. Abortion is not my forte. I personally wouldn't have one, but this is something that I don't believe the government should legislate, nor should it tax the individuals who don't really want to support this enterprise for whatever reason. But these are the kind of questions that people get. They keep asking me questions about Vladimir Putin and how much I support him and how much Donald Trump supports him. And I said, what does that have to do with 11th Middlesex?
Yeah. I don't want to get polemic here, but Ronald Reagan said it's not that our liberal brethren are ignorant. It's just that so much of what they think they know is wrong. I think it hasn't quite filtered in that Russiagate, was a psyop, and that Christopher Steele was in the employ of Hillary Clinton and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. The Hunter Biden laptop didn't really register either. So people just have kind of misconceptions. One of the things about abortion is, that it was brought back to the states, and this is, they actually flipped the coloration. This is called a blue state, but I think before the 2000 election, they were the opposite colors.
That's
I
right.
think when Bill Clinton ran, the Republicans were blue, as in blue blood, and the Democrats were red, as in the Maoist kind of communist
Yes.
flag color, Soviet, whatever. And so, at some point they're like, oh, well, I think the news stations flip that around. But at any rate, currently we are a blue state. You're in a blue state yourself right now with that
Yes,
shirt.
always blue. I think pants too.
Really? I think the blue pants. I'm not sure how they're going to come across on TV, but so let's leave the trivial. If you were elected in a week or two to be state rep, it would probably be a lonely affair on Capitol.
It would be very lonely. Truth be told, I probably don't think I'd get along with too many Republicans over there because too much of going on on Beacon Hill. I'd like to be a disruption when I go there. I'd like to be a temporary disruption. I don't want this to be a career. I do want to go in there, and as I often say, for some reason I like this statement, I would like to lift up the fig leaf of propriety and see what's actually going on under the covers of darkness over there. And people need to know what's going on with their money. People really need to be connected. Right now we have a great big disconnect between what people are spending in taxes. People say, I pay my taxes. Ain't nobody out there paying their taxes. Taxes are being withheld by uncompensated IRS agents who are your employers. If you had to sit down and write out a check every 2 weeks, I'm telling you right now, nobody would be paying to the IRS or the MSDR. I'm telling you right now, if people only knew as an employer, I actually know how much I pay and how much we have to overpay each month. It's incredible what people could have kept in their pocket.
And it's a funny thing, people, this is not the best discount shopping, the state.
Yeah.
I have been in my share of city halls, whether it's Newton's or elsewhere, and the level of busyness is different from what you find at a business. It's a different sense of the word. The hustle and bustle when you're at I've spent time at HubSpot, for instance, in Cambridge, and at other kind of tech companies, looking them over and whatnot. And the level of activity it's a thrum. People are just passing things around. They're busy. They have that look. They're clicking a lot. And in City Hall and probably the State House as well, you're going to find people on a kind of more of a post office regimen. I've had to be in the post office for a few certified letters recently, and it's a big place. Most of them, they're over capacity. They have overcapacity for what they are, and people are kind of, they get to you when they can, and I'm happy my mail, comes and goes, but I think most of that is through automation per se, and I think the human element is, kind of remnant of unions and certain powers and whatnot. So you emanated from the Soviet Union. What are your thoughts about, kind of government efficiency if that's not an oxymoron.
It's definitely an oxymoron. There's no efficiency in government. Government doesn't know how to be efficient. It is the nature of the government to be inefficient. They were built that way. You know, in some places it was a safeguard. In the United States, the method of operation of state or federal governments were intentionally made to be inefficient. So the government would not have the opportunity to intrude quite so readily into people's private lives and businesses. You know, but they've gotten around that pretty good because they've delegated some of their responsibilities of writing laws and doing that to various agencies, whether it's on the state level through informal sessions or organizations like OSHA, the Department of Education, this department, that department. You know, those organizations are sanctioned by Congress, but not by the people, to actually write laws. Whatever they write has a force of law. And law, people should understand, is enforced at the point of the gun. So if you don't comply with an OSHA regulation, they can take your money, they can take your freedom, and yes, in some cases, they can take your life. This is what government does. So this is the awesome force of the government, and we are giving them more and more and more. At some point in time, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that we just give up everything and the government becomes everything. When we are so concerned about a group, we forget that it's the individual that makes it work. See, if we take care of the individual first, individual rights, individual liberties, individual freedoms, then everything becomes quite clear.
Yeah. So we are at the Newton Taxpayers Association. You can find us on Facebook. But I bring this up because Massachusetts historically had a taxpayer revolt. The Boston Tea Party was a revolt against the taxation that was done from a far distance and did not benefit people locally.
That's
it
right.
was seen as a predatory aspect from royalty. Now, royalty, such as it is, has divine rights. And how do you know that? I'll be the first to tell you. But it seems as if, you know, we've substituted, we managed to overthrow the British royalty, and we've, over time, had a sclerotic, you know, hardening of our arteries of power and so forth, in certain places more than others. I mean, I think we've, you know, formed a uniparty state here, which harkens back to royalty in a sense.
Yes.
And a lot of the jobs are not necessarily tough, hardworking jobs, as we were mentioning, with kind of the level of busyness in this kind of approximation of business.
Yeah.
But people haven't revolted. You know, it just seems like we're kind of a laggard place in that regard. I think we've been, you know, my own theory is that we've been buffered and buoyed somewhat by the fact that we have these elite institutions. We've been getting a lot of, you know, federal money coming in, and there's kind of a throw-off, you know, kind of electrical sparks of industry coming from Harvard and MIT,
Yeah.
and the hospitals and so forth. So people keep, you know, busy enough, they have a high enough income level, and they're like, oh, this must be working. But what are the prodromes? What are the signs that you see that things might be falling apart or not working?
Have you been to a hospital lately in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Would you say that things are working over there?
I'm going to leave it to you to fill this in.
Well, I've been involved in healthcare since mid-'80s. And my gosh, I don't recognize what healthcare is. The Sovietization of United States medicine and the establishment is almost complete. The amount of red tape that you have to jump through to get anything done, the amount of dispassionate care that you receive from people who are just there, who are not engaged with you, the physicians who are not really working with you, they're in front of a computer typing some notes.
Oh my God, I love that one. I got to tell you, you know, I'm what, 38 or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
I'm a little bit older, possibly.
Yeah.
Actually, because my kids are in their 30s, but so I'm probably older than that. But you know, this is one of my pet peeves. You know, as time goes on, I'm not only a physician, but I become a patient here and there, and as little as possible. But you know, I saw that the guy comes in and he's got his back to me. He's engaged with the computer, and I'm literally behind him. And he's, you know, for the first visit, whatever, and he's asking stuff that's only on this questionnaire. If he wanted that, he could have given me the questionnaire. I could have,
Yes, yes.
you know, popped all that stuff in. But, you know, they're wasting his time. They're wasting my time because I'm looking for an interaction. I actually want not that computer. I want this computer. If because that's the interface I'm going to be having to get into the healthcare system. I want to know how he thinks about medicine, and I'm not getting that with his back to me. And at one point, I kind of he just ordered some stuff, and I said, look, I just had an EKG like yesterday. I have the thing on my, record. Well, we're going to get an EKG anyway. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm out of here. This is just like working towards the form, and filling stuff in, and so forth. And I walked out, and then he comes apparently because I'm a doctor, and he comes running out after me. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, you're not really. You're only doing this because I'm a doctor, and I might, write or say something, whatever. Because I'm also do some medical writing, and so it's kind of like a funny thing. I mean, the cojones. It's a technical term. Yeah. To do that to a doctor, I mean, that's got to be happening to everybody else, and everybody else doesn't have the, the sensibility or the stubbornness to like walk out, and assess the situation. I don't need to be here. But it's a funny thing. So I think this, we're going to give you time for a closing moment, Harry. I think the sense I'm getting from you is that the real ingenuity, the real, kind of spark in the engine comes from personal enterprise and creativity and thought. Yes. And how does that segue into your running for state office, and how how can your ideas get actuated if it were to happen?
I believe education of my constituents will be the best thing. Just to introduce them to the lessons that I can provide them once I know what's going on behind the closed doors. I want to teach people and tell them to take the power back into their own hands. That public service really needs to be public service. You see, a 29-year, 30-year career that Kay Khan had, she must have been a magnificent nurse beforehand, but she spent 30 years working on Beacon Hill. Why? That's not public service. That's feeding at the trough. That's what people go to Beacon Hill for. I don't want to go to Beacon Hill for too long. I want to fix a few things, or at least be a speed bump on the way of that steamroller locomotive. Something.
If you were good, I would keep you there longer, because you're just a party of one. So I'm more worried about the blob that's just kind of like hanging out there doing things. And frankly, I would almost pay to have them there and do nothing.
If it were only so.
Yeah.
But they are busy doing so, that level of busyness.
Yeah.
Because they need to come up looking and tell, oh, we know everything about climate change. Yeah. Climate change.
Yeah,
are we done with acid rain? Are we done with global cooling? Are we done with ozone holes? I mean, all of this is the climate change from 70s on. What are we on now?
And whatever problem is, the solution is always more government.
See,
and more money out of your pocket.
Always more money,
and there's a fair
government.
amount of like crying wolf to the whole thing, that nothing is really going to be happening on that basis, but you're going to be able to be the conduit for it. So we only have a minute left. If you are a Newton taxpayer, or you are sympathetic to the Newton taxpayers, please come find us on Facebook and connect with us. We're happy to engage. We have occasional meetings, but we are looking to be the voice of the taxpayer. I think we have an ally here in Vlad Yanovsky.
Absolutely.
And we'd love to have him back on again soon. Please let us know if you have issues you'd like to cover, or if you have people that you'd like to come on the show. Get in the lion's den. Did you survive today?
I survived yesterday. I survived the Harvest Fair. Got a lot of love over there.
Well, that's a lovely thing. So thank you so much, Vlad. I appreciate your coming on.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sorry that Amy Massangelo, she was otherwise occupied.
Me too. We have wonderful discussions.
Yeah, but I'd like people to go back and look at the debate that we actually had last month, and we'll try to leave a link to it. And I think it's very informative. People can make their decision rather than just kind of going in blindly and checking.
It is indeed. It's worth watching.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's see, the 21st?
Yes.